a historical narration of the San Jose Historical Museum's past 25 years and before. We will take you down memory lane to reminisce, remember the past, celebrate the accomplishments of today, and give you reason to believe in an exciting tomorrow. Although the San Jose Historical Museum opened its doors at Kelley Park 25 years ago in 1971, the story begins before that time, 1949, when the city's historian, Clyde Arbuckle, began to exhibit, collect, and catalog artifacts, preserving and promoting the history of Santa Clara Valley, building the foundation of the Historical Museum located at the State House replica building at the County Fairgrounds. Like the needs of today, the volunteers, their time, and donations were important in the growth and development of the museum. Clyde served as the museum's curator, director, and jack of all trades.
More than time, they decided to build a replica of the State House. Those on the committee, you ought to remember this. The people around town donated the materials. The commission had no money to speak of. The commissioners weren't paid, and I wasn't paid for the city. The State House was to be a museum. Well, where were we going to get the gifts? Where were we going to have the material? Well, ever since the commission was put together, why the people began giving it. They were emptying their houses.
During the early years and the moving of the State House, the San Jose Historical Museum was under the jurisdiction of the San Jose Landmarks Commission. Theron Fox served as president.
Well, of course, I was always interested in the history of San Jose, and I used to visit the museum out at the fairgrounds quite often. But I had been elected president of the Landmarks Commission, and I traveled up and down the state. In my job, I visit all these little city museums on the way. And one day I was in Kern County, Bakersfield, and I went to see their replica of a old town, and I figured that was the system that San Jose should have. It gave room for expansion and could handle larger crowds rather than just tour groups. And so I made up my mind that was if possible, that was a kind of museum we should have in San Jose.
Assisting Theron with his numerous preservation projects, his wife, Frances Fox, takes an active role in historic preservation, also serving on the Landmarks Commission and documenting history in her own way.
And during that time, there were exciting years. We had the dedication of the Peralta Adobe, and I would give slide programs and lectures, and then I taught local history at De Anza College. And then also supplementing the lectures, I would go out into the community and we'd have a walking tour of Santa Clara, San Jose, and Mission San Jose, Saratoga, and all the outlying communities. But I always emphasized the San Jose Historical Museum, and that was always included in the tour. And also, I worked with different historical societies outside of San Jose, and I also took them on tours of the Historical Museum, everything to promote the Historical Museum. That was our first love.
Ernie Renzel's family and community roots are deep. The affection he feels for his city is apparent as he continues to support the museum and the city of San Jose, as he did so many years ago when he aided the city in the purchase of a large collection from Louis Bohnett.
I was born in San Jose in 1907. My father was born here prior to that, and my grandfather came here in 1855. So we've been in this community for a long time, but we went in 1944 on a reform ticket. 6 of us ran as a group, and we were the city council. So one of the first things we did as council was to form a historical landmarks commission. And currently this is part of the historical landmarks program. I think it was important for us to remember that San Jose had a great past, it's got a great present, and it has a great future. And I think that this particular Kelley Park should be the centerpiece for San Jose for its recreational values, as well as a nice place for young people to go and be happy.
Theron Fox, as Landmark's president, asked his old schoolmate Ernie Renzel to help the city purchase a special collection for the city's museum. They put their ideas and financial resources together to make it happen.
You're talking about the Bohnett Collection. Well, Bohnett had a real interesting collection of stuff. Trouble was, he was always running out of money. So I went to see him at SJHM and said, go talk to him. So I did. And as a result, we bought the collection, but we paid it off over a period of 4 or 5 years, I think. But the city, I think we financed it somewhere or other. I forget the details, but it's a very nice collection. It's really good stuff. And it is part of this museum complex. Of course, it pleases me that this historical museum has been such a fine thing for so many young people. I'm thinking you're in the background here, these kids. But this is only the tip of the iceberg. This complex can go all the way to Morgan Hill with the Coyote Creek Freeway and Parkway. But I see this as being right in a class with Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. It's got lots of room, and the main thing is that it's got a nucleus for development of a very, very fine park for the people. Not for me, not for you, but for all the young people and the community itself.
Pat Loomis, a longtime and loyal museum friend, is a historian in her own right. Pat recalls her career as a reporter for the Mercury News and her lasting friendship with fellow historian Clyde Arbuckle.
Anyway, not too long after I started to work on the paper, which was in 1943, after I graduated, I started going to classes taught by Mr. Arbuckle. And I got more and more interested, and then when I would see little things would come up that had a historical significance, and so I would write about them. And I would submit them, and they started using them. They didn't tell me to do these things, but I just couldn't keep my hands off them. So then I started calling Mr. Arbuckle, and he became my great source. And I've always felt that I owed my entire career to Clyde and Theron and some of the others that had helped me so much in my beginnings of writing about history. And then I started going on these trips with Clyde and the adult education program. And then one day the editor said, Pat, we would like to do a historical feature once a week, and do you have any ideas? And I said, well, you know, I've been studying the history of San Jose, and because it was the first civil settlement, the first state capital, and there were so many pioneers that settled here, that I've been looking at the street names, and so many of the streets are named for these pioneers, and I would like to do something on the street names. So they decided to call it signposts, and so for exactly 10 years I wrote a column on one of the streets, not just in San Jose. I did the entire county, and I even went up to San Francisco and down into Monterey and you know, in nearby areas. And then I retired in 1983, and just before I retired, the Mercury had put together about 60 of these signpost articles. into a book form, but they never got around to publishing it. So they gave it to the museum, and the museum published it, and then a couple of years later they published another one, which we call Signpost 2. And then eventually I wrote a history of the first 100 years of Milpitas, which always seems to get a laugh because Milpitas was kind of a vaudeville joke for many years, but it certainly isn't anymore. I mean, it's a big city. But anyway, then when you sit back and look, and just sitting here today, looking at the Chinese temple and all these buildings that are here, they were not here 25 years ago. You know, we had a couple of warehouses where we stuffed all the stuff from the State House Museum, and then we started acquiring the doctor's office, and we built the hotel, the firehouse, and eventually, you know, you can begin to see that this is going to be a city, a town, you know, of its own. And, you know, I really have to hand it to the people who have worked so hard out here. You know, I've just kind of gotten in their hair, I think. But I think maybe that's not a bad thing. I think if you show interest, even though you may be off the wall, kind of, at least they think about it. And some of the things that I had hoped that would happen have happened.
1971, the San Jose Historical Museum opened its doors at Kelley Park, also the beginning of the San Jose Historical Museum Association, a non-profit organization in support of the city's museum. Norman Mineta was mayor in 1971. Over the past 25 years, the mayors of San Jose visited the museum. 1982 was a critical time for the museum and other city facilities. Janet Gray Hayes, as mayor, realized the importance of community involvement.
It's my pleasure and honor to congratulate the San Jose Historic Museum Association on 25 years of existence. I think the future looks very bright and very challenging. I was mayor from 75 through 82 for 8 years, and during that time, the citizens of California passed Proposition 13, which meant tremendous cutbacks in city government. The school district in San Jose actually declared bankruptcy, and what we did at City Hall was to say, this is your community, we have to cut back and cut down, and we charge you as citizens interested in these very important entities to come forth and help out. We charged not only the museum, but the libraries, the Philippine Community Center, the Parks and Recreation. I can remember that we were very close to voting to close the San Jose Family Camp, and we charged the citizens, I charged the citizens to come forth and help out, which they did with Friends of Family Camp, just like the Historic Museum. There was a time in 1982 when actually our city manager had recommended closing the museum. It was after 4 years of cutbacks from the city government funding. And again, the charge was put out, citizens, this is your responsibility. We cannot continue this funding. And they did come forth and they did keep the museum open. It is a valuable asset to our community today. So I'm very happy to be able to say thank you to all the citizens, the staff, all the volunteers that spent countless hours of work in the San Jose Historic Museum. It's a lovely place to visit. The grounds are wonderful, and we have something to work for in the future. And I wish you all the very best.
Tom McEnery's passion for history and civic commitment stems from his family roots. Mayor McEnery's progressive approach to politics made an impact on what we know as the city of San Jose today.
I'll start with, you know, it's a warm July afternoon, and I walk down the street and come to one of my favorite places, the Fallon House. It's been provided for former mayors as a place of tranquility where they can pick up one of their favorite books. I really love this author of this book here. and just kind of kick back and talk a little bit about San Jose and how it came to be. There are others that do it better than I, but I don't think there's anyone who maybe enjoys it quite as much as I do from the inside as well as the outside. And seeing the growth of the San Jose Museum and what the Museum Association has done over the last quarter of a century has been something that I've enjoyed very much as a citizen, and during the time I had the honor to be mayor of San Jose. I guess I got involved a lot with this particular area of history and this geographic area where we sit today about the middle of the 1970s, when Leonard McKay came over to my father and asked him if he'd be willing to head up an organization to restore the old Peralta Adobe. My father, being very wise, said he couldn't do it at this time, but how about having Tom do it? And Leonard jumped me very shortly after that, and I got involved with one of the most exciting things I've ever been involved in. I remember the Peralta Adobe, walking by there many times and talking to old Mr. Baccio, who lived right in front of it in the old frame house. Baccio, to me, is one of the true heroes of San Jose. When others were forgetting about the past and really paid no attention to the important elements of continuity that we should pass on to our children and grandchildren and other generations, Mr. Baccio, although I don't think he could have told you the history of Manuel Gonzalez, the Apache Indian who built it, or Peralta, the first comisionado of San Jose, but he knew there was something very intrinsically valuable in that old building. And he took care of it when people in the city were frankly kind of asleep at the switch. And by the time Leonard McKay and others decided that it was time to restore the Peralta Adobe, well, Mr. Baccio had indeed done his important part of the work, and the rest of us kind of followed in. We raised a good deal of money, all from private individuals and people like Leonard McKay and Theron Fox and Clyde Arbuckle, and of course the historian Frances Fox and so many others. Frank Kakuza were invaluable in making sure that the Peralta Adobe took its place as one of the great educational treasures of our area. The Fallon House, with the good work of Judy Stabile and other people at City Hall, which had finally woke up a little bit to the importance of history, became, I think, just a wonderful 1-2 punch in historical continuity and educational resources. And anybody who doubts their value, all they have to do is sit around down here, as I occasionally do, and see the children's groups coming through and see the students getting a chance to understand exactly how San Jose came to be. I think we all know what Mr. Baccio knew instinctively, that these buildings are very important, and what they signify is a singularly valuable thing to San Jose and to this entire region. I guess that same type of feeling that I get here is multiplied many-fold when we go out to the Historical Museum at Kelley Park. The volunteers that have worked so hard there, the Museum Association, and the things that they have done are little short of spectacular. You know, Silicon Valley is famous for startups, and in 25 years I have to think that the San Jose Historical Museum is one of the most successful startups that Silicon Valley has ever seen. I was very proud to support them as mayor. I'm very proud to support them as a citizen. It's a great place for an afternoon, and it's a great place to spend a whole week if you have the time.
Judy Stabile's enthusiasm and affection for history and devotion to civic responsibilities is made clear. Her commitment to preservation is evident.
I got a chance to go on the Landmarks Commission in either 79 or 80, and I had friends on the commission already. A number of people who have been here at the museum were commissioners with me, and we all ended up continuing the love of the history of San Jose. And from there, my next involvement was when I ran for city council, and I was able to be a Landmarks Commission to the day I was sworn in on city council. And part of what I wanted to achieve when I was on council was some things for the museum and some things for the old buildings downtown, and a way of continuing to present local history in an interesting fashion that people might enjoy. And so council's a perfect place to do that from. There is no better place than the local city council with access to the local budget to do good work for historical preservation and other kinds of historical needs.
In 1980, Kathy Muller made her mark on the San Jose Historical Museum. After taking docent training and later serving on the Association Board of Directors, she was hired as the association's administrator in 1982.
And for about 2 years I gave tours of the museum, mostly to school children, to 3rd and to 4th graders, but to the general public as well. During that time I was also asked to be on the Association Board of Directors. I served on that board for probably less than a year when the board was faced with a fairly momentous decision. The effects of Proposition 13 had hit the city of San Jose and other cities throughout California, and the funding that had been in place since the beginning of the museum seemed to just evaporate. And we dropped from 11 full-time city staff people to 2. The museum was left with a full-time director and a secretary and nobody else to assist in keeping the doors open, much less, all the other programs that people wanted to see happen. So the association board at that time came to the conclusion that they were going to have to take on a different role than they had previously. Prior to 82, 83, the association had been a social support group for the museum, had operated the membership program and done parties for the openings of exhibits and things like that. But it was decided at that point that the association would try to fund 3 part-time staff positions to help keep the doors of the museum open until more stable funding could be found at a later date. And I was one of the 3 people that was hired at that time. A docent coordinator was hired, a curator, and my position was titled administrator, and my job was to actually build up the association as an organization. About 1986 or so, the Museum Association entered into a special partnership relationship with the city, whereby we worked with the city Department of Architectural Engineering and using in some cases city funds but also association funds and private grant monies, we moved a number of buildings onto this site and restored those that we moved on, plus several others that have been sitting here for some time unrestored since the city funding had disappeared. One of the buildings in particular that we did restore that I think I'm proudest of is the Stevens Ranch Fruit Barn, which is right here behind me. This fruit storage shed had actually been moved from a South County location when the Highway 101 bypass was going in, and it had been moved here to the site and was actually in place in 1980 when I first came here, but there was no exhibit in it. It wasn't yet open to the public. And one of the things that the Museum Association did was actually coordinate the restoration of this building, turned it into museum climate-controlled space, and worked with Yvonne Jacobson, who was the author and designer of the exhibit Passing Farms, Enduring Values, that is a history of the small family farm in the Santa Clara Valley. Our exhibit consists of photographic panels, and text, and then throughout it, it is enhanced by cases with artifacts that talk about the agricultural industry, the fruit packing industry that was such a large part of the history of this valley. Many people that I've spoken to who grew up and worked here in the orchards and in the canning industry have said how nostalgic this exhibit is for them, that it really brings back to many of them the experiences they had as a child working in their parents' orchard or in some industry related to the canning business. So this is one of my favorite exhibits, and because I think that it really speaks to the importance of this industry to what our history was here for so many years, and is such an important part of the legacy that we have. One of the more interesting parts of the exhibit for me, too, is this area over here that is an exhibit of fruit canning labels. Many of them came to us from the Murison canning label, and some of them were designed by a man by the name of Ralph Rambo, who I had the pleasure of knowing for several years. Ralph was actually the author of a number of books on the history of the Santa Clara Valley that he hand-lettered and wrote initially for his grandchildren and then for the enjoyment of everybody else. Ralph had spent his entire adult career at Murison Label Company as an artist designing fruit labels. And there's just some really interesting history in these labels. Years and years ago, they did not have to picture what was in the can, and so many of the labels actually depict historical scenes, and you'll see Mount Hamilton and other natural attractions from the Santa Clara Valley on these beautiful labels. As the years went by, you can see the way the laws changed and how important it became to list the ingredients and to actually picture what was inside the can. But I think some of the older labels in particular contain a lot of individual family histories. Different brand names were named after families, named after people's children and grandchildren, and after important places here in the Santa Clara Valley. So they present a wonderful history, I think, of this valley in a microcosm, as well as a real history, again, of a portion of the canning industry. I'm really proud and pleased that I had actually 16 years that I was directly involved with the museum and with the Museum Association. I think that we've just made tremendous strides in all of the last 25 years, and I really think that the future is very bright. My wish is certainly that this museum becomes a real regional attraction. I think that it has the potential to do that, and I wish the whole museum community well in achieving that goal.
"22 years ago, 1974, Mignon Gibson's career at the San Jose Historical Museum began as a museum technician, then as assistant curator, and in 1982 as the museum's director. What changes she has seen.
We're celebrating 25 years of history at the San Jose Historical Museum site in Kelley Park. A lot has happened in the past 25 years thanks to a tremendous amount of community involvement. Let's go look at some of our projects. San Jose Trolley Corporation donated the trolley barn and the cars. Thousands of hours are donated annually by all the volunteers that come out here. This has been a tremendous resource for the Historical Museum and helps make our grounds come alive. The Rotary Club of San Jose funded the Gordon House and are now residents at our site. Chinese Historical and Cultural Project raised over $600,000 and replicated San Jose's 1888 Chinese temple. Received a state grant and put in $1 million street system, paving the way for our new museum grounds, our downtown, our country lane area. The Portuguese Heritage Society of California will dedicate their completed building in 1997. We have a memorandum of understanding with the Perham Foundation Electronics Museum to include their project at our site to showcase early electronics so relevant to our valley. With the help of the San Jose Historical Museum Association, we've updated our master plan, and we are now organizing ourselves with the help of the mayor and city council with a governing board so that our institution can meet the needs of the and shows you how much agricultural area we have by the Coyote Creek. We do plan a historic town of 70 buildings and a large area so that we can showcase San Jose's early agricultural history by preserving vines, trees, and all the beautiful elements of nature that made this the Garden City. History is about people. So many people have made the San Jose Historical Museum what it is today. I look forward to working with everybody in the future and all of you helping us build our dream. Thank you.
We hope you have enjoyed the story. An important part of history has been documented, but it doesn't end here. Under the leadership of Mayor Susan Hammer, the San Jose Historical Museum, soon to be called History Museums of San Jose, has a bright and exciting future. On behalf of the San Jose Historical Museum and Association, we thank you all for all you have done and continue to do. We look forward to all of you taking an active role in the growth and development of this new organization.
Sound like the frog that I've ever heard. Sounds like a frog.